Park Ji-ho was not a soldier. He was not a diplomat. He was not anyone important. He was just an engineer who liked to fix things. He stood in the cargo bay of the UEF carrier Horizon, checking his toolkit for the third time. His hands were rough from years of work. His uniform was clean but worn at the elbows. He was 28 years old, and he had spent most of those years with his head inside broken machines. "You look nervous," said a voice behind him. Ji-ho turned around. Lieutenant Yuna stood there with her arms crossed. She was his commanding officer, a sharp woman with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. She was Korean like him, born in Busan, and she had a habit of treating him like a younger brother she needed to protect. "I am not nervous," Ji-ho said. "I am just making sure I have everything. You have checked that bag 5 times. 3 times. I was watching. It was 5. Ji-ho closed the bag and put it over his shoulder. "Okay, maybe I am a little nervous." Yuna smiled. It was a rare thing. "Good, you should be. This is not a normal repair job. We are going to the Corvani homeworld. One wrong word, one wrong action, and we could start a war." Ji-ho swallowed hard. He had heard stories about the Corvani. They were an old species, much older than humans. Their empire covered 3 star systems. They were tall, strong, and proud. Their bodies were humanoid but covered in a hard shell like armor. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They valued honor above all things. Humanity had only made contact with them 2 years ago. The relationship was fragile. The Corvani did not trust easily. This mission was supposed to build goodwill. A team of human engineers would help repair their flagship. It was a small gesture, but small gestures mattered in diplomacy. "Why did they choose me?" Ji-ho asked. "There are better engineers." "No," Yuna said. "There are not. You are the best mechanical engineer on this ship. You fixed the reactor last month when everyone said it was impossible. You rebuilt the navigation system with spare parts. The captain asked for our best, and I gave him your name." Ji-ho felt warmth in his chest, but also fear. "I fixed machines. I do not talk to alien queens." "You will not need to talk to the queen. You will work in the engine room. You will be invisible. Just do your job and do not touch anything you are not supposed to touch." Those words would haunt Ji-ho later. But at that moment, he just nodded. The journey to the Corvani homeworld took 3 days. Ji-ho spent most of that time studying their technology. It was beautiful. The Corvani built machines like artists. Every part had a purpose. Every design had meaning. Their engines were not just functional, they were works of art. When the Horizon finally arrived, Ji-ho pressed his face against the observation window like a child. The Corvani Royal Station hung in orbit above their planet. It was massive. It was shaped like a great wheel, spinning slowly against the stars. Golden light poured from thousands of windows. Ships moved around it like fish around a reef. "It is beautiful," Ji-ho whispered. "It is also very dangerous," Yuna said. She stood beside him with a tablet in her hand. "The Corvani have many traditions, many rules, many ways to offend them. I will translate for you, but you must be careful. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not stare at anyone. Do not touch anything that looks old or important." "What if I do not know if something is old or important?" "Then do not touch it." The shuttle took them to the station. When the doors opened, Ji-ho stepped into another world. The air smelled different. It was sweet, like flowers, but also sharp, like metal. The hallways were wide and tall. The walls were covered in carvings that told stories Ji-ho could not understand. Corvani warriors stood at every corner. They were taller than any human. Their shells were dark blue and green. Their eyes watched the human visitors with cold curiosity. Ji-ho kept his head down and followed Yuna. They walked through the station for what felt like hours. Finally, they reached a great hall. It was the largest room Ji-ho had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Thousands of Corvani stood along the walls, silent and still. At the center of the hall, on a raised platform, stood a suit of armor. Ji-ho stopped walking. He could not help it. The armor was magnificent. It was made of gold and white metal. It glowed with inner light. It was covered in symbols and patterns that seemed to move when he looked at them. It was old. He could feel its age. It had been worn by queens for thousands of years. That is the sacred raiment, Yuna whispered. The queen's armor. It has been passed down for 40 generations. It is the symbol of her right to rule. Do not stare at it. But Jiho could not look away. His engineer's eyes saw every detail. The joints, the power source, the way the plates connected. It was the most beautiful machine he had ever seen. Jiho, Yuna said sharply. He blinked and looked away. Sorry. They moved on. Jiho tried to focus on the job ahead. He would work on the engines. He would be invisible. He would not cause any problems. That night in his small room on the station, Jiho could not sleep. He kept thinking about the armor. He kept seeing it in his mind. The way it glowed. The way it was built. He wanted to touch it. He wanted to understand it. He told himself to forget it. It was not his concern. He was just an engineer. He was nobody. But the universe had other plans for Park Jiho. In 3 days, everything would change. In 3 days, the whole Kurvani Empire would know his name. And it would all start with a broken machine that nobody else could fix. Jiho lay in the darkness and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the station, he could hear the hum of engines. It was a comforting sound. Machines were simple. Machines made sense. People in politics did not. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, he would be just another engineer in a foreign place, doing his small part for humanity. He had no idea how wrong he was. 3 days passed. Jiho worked hard. He woke early. He went to the engine room. He fixed what needed fixing. He improved what could be improved. The Kurvani engineers watched him with suspicion at first, but slowly they began to respect him. He did not speak much. He did not need to. His hands spoke for him. When he repaired a broken power line in half the time they expected, they nodded. When he found a leak that their sensors had missed, they looked at him differently. He was still human. He was still an outsider, but he was useful. On the 3rd day, something special happened. A ceremony. A parade. Yuna came to his room early in the morning. Get dressed, she said. You are invited to watch the queen. Jiho put on his cleanest uniform. Why? Because you have done good work. The Kurvani chief engineer asked for you to be included. It is an honor. Do not waste it. They walked together to the great hall. It was even more crowded than before. Thousands of Kurvani filled every space. They stood in perfect rows, silent and waiting. The air was thick with tension and excitement. Then the drums began. The sound was deep and powerful. It shook the floor. It shook Jiho's chest. The crowd parted. And a group of warriors marched through. They carried weapons and flags. They moved in perfect time with the drums. And behind them came the queen. Jiho had never seen anything like her. She was tall, taller than any Kurvani he had met. Her shell was pale silver, almost white. Her eyes glowed like blue stars. She walked with the confidence of someone who had never known fear. She wore the sacred raiment. The golden armor fit her perfectly. It moved with her like a second skin. Light danced across its surface. Every step she took sent ripples of energy through the metal. She was beautiful. She was terrifying. She was a queen. Jiho watched in silence. His heart was beating fast. He had seen many things in his life, but he had never seen anything like this. Queen Valina walked to the center of the hall. She raised her hand, and the drums stopped. The silence was complete. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then everything went wrong. There was a flash of light, a sound like thunder. Something hit the queen from above. Jiho saw fire and smoke. He saw the queen fall. He saw warriors shouting and running. An explosion. An attack. An assassination attempt. Yuna grabbed his arm and pulled him down. "Stay low!" she shouted. Jiho could not see what was happening. There was too much chaos. Warriors were fighting. Energy weapons were firing. Smoke filled the air. He heard screaming and orders being shouted in the Kurvani language. It lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. When the smoke cleared, the assassins were dead. Royal guards stood over their bodies. The queen was alive. She stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by her protectors. But something was wrong. Jiho looked at the sacred raiment, and his heart sank. The armor was destroyed. The golden metal was torn and twisted. The chest plate had a hole burned through it. The power core at the center was cracked and dark. Pieces lay scattered on the floor. The beautiful machine that had lasted 40 generations was now broken beyond recognition. Queen Valina looked down at her ruined armor. Her face showed nothing, but Jiho saw her hands. They were shaking, just a little, just enough for him to notice. The hall fell silent again, but this silence was different. It was the silence of grief. It was the silence of disaster. An old Corvani stepped forward. He was bent with age and his shell was faded gray, but his voice was strong. "The sacred raiment is destroyed," he announced. "This is a dark day for our empire." Jiho would later learn that this was Advisor Morath, the Queen's chief advisor. He was the keeper of traditions. He knew every law and every custom. "Without the sacred raiment," Morath continued, "the Queen's right to rule may be challenged. The ancient laws are clear. She who does not wear the armor of her ancestors cannot sit upon the throne." Whispers spread through the crowd. Jiho saw fear on many faces. He saw something else on others. Hope, ambition. There were people here who wanted the Queen to fall. One Corvani stepped forward. He was young and strong. His shell was deep purple, and his eyes burned with cold fire. "If the Queen cannot wear the sacred armor," he said loudly, "then perhaps it is time for new leadership." More whispers, some agreements, some anger. Queen Valina raised her hand, and everyone fell silent. "The armor will be repaired," she said. Her voice was calm. "My engineers will restore it." But even as she spoke, her engineers were examining the broken pieces. Jiho watched them. He saw them shake their heads. He saw them look at each other with hopeless eyes. One of them stepped forward and bowed low. "Your Majesty," he said, "the damage is too great. The core is shattered. The metal is corrupted. We do not have the knowledge to repair it. The armor is lost." The purple Corvani smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Then it seems the gods have spoken. Perhaps they favor a different ruler." Jiho learned later that this was Prince Torek. He was a powerful noble. He controlled many warriors. He had wanted to marry the Queen for years. She had always refused. Now he saw his chance. Queen Valina said nothing. She stood straight and proud. But Jiho could see the truth. She had lost. Without the armor, her enemies would circle like sharks. They would challenge her. They would tear her empire apart. The ceremony ended. The crowd left. Jiho was pulled away by Yuna before he could see more. "What happens now?" he asked as they walked back to their quarters. Yuna's face was dark. "Politics, fighting, maybe war. The Corvani have many factions, many rivals. The Queen was holding them together. Without the armor, she loses her authority. Everything falls apart. But it is just armor, just a machine." Yuna stopped walking. She looked at him with tired eyes. "It is never just a machine, Jiho. It is a symbol. It is history. It is faith. For the Corvani, that armor is everything. And now it is gone." That night, Jiho lay in his bed and thought about what he had seen. He thought about the Queen's shaking hands. He thought about the broken armor lying in pieces. He thought about the engineers who said it could not be fixed. But Jiho was different from other engineers. He did not believe in impossible. He believed that every machine could be saved. Every broken thing could be made whole again. He closed his eyes and saw the armor in his mind. He saw the cracks. He saw the damage. He saw the pieces. And slowly he began to see how they could fit back together. He should have stayed in his room. He should have followed Yuna's orders. He should have been invisible. But Park Jiho was an engineer, and there was a beautiful machine that needed to be fixed. He could not ignore it, not even if he tried. It was late at night when Jiho left his room. The station was quiet. Most of the Corvani were sleeping. Only guards walked the halls, and they paid no attention to the small human who moved through the shadows. He was just an engineer. He was nobody important. Jiho found the armor in a storage room near the royal quarters. It had been placed on a metal table, surrounded by broken pieces. The Corvani had given up on it. To them, it was already dead. But to Jiho, it was just waiting to be fixed. He stood in the doorway for a long moment. He knew he should not be here. He knew he should turn around and go back to his room. Yuna had told him not to touch anything important. This was the most important thing in the entire empire, but his hands were already moving toward his toolkit. Just a look, he whispered to himself, just to see how bad it really is. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. For the first hour, he did not touch anything. He only looked. He walked around the table slowly. He studied every piece. He memorized every crack and every break. He saw how the armor was built. He understood its design. The Corvani were brilliant engineers, but they thought differently than humans. Their machines were beautiful but rigid. They followed patterns that had been used for thousands of years. They did not change. They did not adapt. Jiho saw the problem immediately. The power core was indeed shattered, but it was not the core itself that mattered. It was the energy flow, the paths that carried power through the armor. Those paths were blocked by damage. The Corvani thought the core needed to be replaced, but Jiho saw another way. He could redirect the flow. He could create new paths. He could use a human power cell instead of a Corvani one. It would be smaller, but more efficient. It would work. His hands began to shake, not from fear, from excitement. I can fix this, he said out loud. I can actually fix this. He opened his toolkit and got to work. The first night, he worked on the power system. He removed the broken core carefully, treating each piece with respect. He studied how it connected to the rest of the armor. Then he took a small fusion cell from his kit. It was something he always carried, a backup power source for emergencies. He had built it himself. He modified the cell. He adjusted its output. He created adapters that would connect it to the Corvani systems. It was delicate work. One mistake could destroy everything. But Jiho did not make mistakes, not with machines. By morning, the power system was working again, weak but working. Light flickered inside the armor for the first time since the attack. Jiho hid his work and returned to his room. He slept for 2 hours. Then he went to his regular job in the engine room. He acted normal. He spoke to no one about what he had done. That night, he returned to the storage room. The second night, he worked on the structure. The metal plates were torn and twisted. Normal welding would not work. The Corvani metal was too strong, too different. But Jiho had brought human tools, nano-welding equipment that could work at the molecular level. He repaired the chest plate first. The hole from the attack was the worst damage. He filled it with layers of new metal, bonding them together, atom by atom. It was slow work. It took hours. But when he finished, the plate was stronger than before. He moved on to the joints, the shoulders, the arms. Each piece took time. Each piece required patience. Jiho had plenty of both. The second morning came. The armor was half repaired. Jiho was exhausted but happy. He could see the finish line now. The third night was the hardest. He had to reconnect all the systems, the sensors, the communication links, the movement controls. Each one was different. Each one required understanding not just the machine, but the culture that built it. Jiho studied the symbols carved into the metal. He did not know what they meant, but he knew they were important. He was careful not to damage them. He worked around them. He respected them. As he worked, he began to understand the armor in a deeper way. It was not just a machine, it was a story. Every mark, every design, every choice told him something about the queens who had worn it before. They were warriors. They were leaders. They were mothers and daughters and sisters. The armor was their legacy, their gift to the future. Jiho felt a strange emotion, pride, not in himself, but in the work, in being allowed to touch something so important, in being able to save it when others could not. By the third morning, the sacred raiment was complete. Jiho stepped back and looked at what he had done. The armor stood on the table, whole and beautiful. It glowed with inner light, brighter than before. The gold shone. The white metal gleamed. The symbols danced with energy. It was perfect. No, it was better than perfect. Jiho had not just repaired the armor, he had improved it. The power flow was more efficient. The joints moved more smoothly. The plates were stronger. He had taken something ancient and made it ready for the future. He smiled. For a moment, he forgot where he was. He forgot the rules. He forgot the danger. Then the door opened. Jiho spun around. His heart stopped. Lieutenant Yuna stood in the doorway. Her face was pale. Her eyes were wide. She looked at the armor, then at Jiho, then at the armor again. Jiho, she said slowly, what have you done? I fixed it, he said. He was still smiling. He did not understand why she looked so afraid. Look, Lieutenant, I fixed the Queen's armor. The Corvani said it was impossible, but I did it. I actually did it. Yuna walked into the room. She moved like someone in a dream. She touched the armor with trembling fingers. You fixed it, she repeated. Yes, it took 3 nights, but I figured out how. The power system needed to be redesigned, and the metal needed nano-welding, and the joints needed… Ji-ho! Yuna's voice was sharp. Do you know what you have done? I saved the Queen's armor. I helped her. Yuna laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just watched a disaster happen. Ji-ho, you did not save her. You just proposed marriage to her. Ji-ho blinked. What? The sacred raiment. Only one person is allowed to repair it. Only one person is allowed to touch it. The Queen's chosen consort, her husband. By repairing this armor, you have declared yourself worthy of her hand. You have completed the trial of the groom. Ji-ho stared at her. The words did not make sense. But I am just an engineer. I just wanted to fix a broken machine. The Corvani do not care what you wanted. They only care what you did. Yuna grabbed his arm. We need to hide this. We need to pretend it never happened. If anyone finds out… The door opened again. An old Corvani stood there. Advisor Morath. His ancient eyes looked at the armor. They looked at Jiho's tools. They looked at the human engineer standing in the middle of the room. He smiled. It was the first time Jiho had seen a Corvani smile. The Queen will want to hear about this, Morath said softly. The human has done what our own engineers could not. He has restored the sacred raiment. Please, Yuna said quickly. He did not understand. He did not know the tradition. This was a mistake. Morath shook his head. There are no mistakes in sacred law. There is only what is done and what is not done. He looked at Jiho with curious eyes. You have interesting hands, human. I wonder what else they can build. Then he turned and walked away. Yuna's grip on Jiho's arm tightened. This is bad, she whispered. This is very, very bad. Jiho looked at the armor he had spent 3 nights repairing. It was beautiful. It was his best work. And apparently it was also a marriage proposal to the most powerful woman in 3-star systems. Yuna, he said quietly, I think I made a mistake. Yes, she agreed. You did. The next morning, guards came for Jiho. They did not speak. They did not explain. They simply appeared at his door, 4 tall Corvani warriors with glowing eyes and sharp weapons. They looked at him like he was either a criminal or a miracle. He could not tell which. Yuna tried to come with him, but they stopped her. Only the human, one guard said. The Queen's orders. Jiho looked back at Yuna as they led him away. She looked terrified. That did not help his confidence. The walk to the Great Hall took forever, or maybe it only felt that way. Jiho's mind was racing. What would happen to him? Would they punish him? Would they thank him? Would they send him home in shame? He did not know. He could not know. The Corvani were strange to him. Their customs made no sense. He had just wanted to fix a machine. How had that become a marriage proposal? The doors to the Great Hall opened. Jiho stopped breathing. The hall was full. Thousands of Corvani stood in perfect rows. They lined the walls, they filled the balconies. They watched him with thousands of glowing eyes. The silence was so complete that Jiho could hear his own heartbeat. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, sat the Queen. Queen Valina was wearing the sacred raiment. Jiho's heart jumped. The armor looked perfect. Better than perfect. It glowed with golden light. It moved with the Queen like water. She sat on her throne with the calm confidence of someone who had won a great victory. She was wearing his work, his 3 nights of effort, his creation. He felt a strange pride, and then he felt a strange fear. The guards led him to the center of the hall. They stopped him before the platform. They stepped back, leaving him alone. Alone in front of thousands of aliens. Alone in front of a queen. Jiho swallowed hard. He did not know what to do. Should he bow? Should he speak? Should he stay silent? He decided to bow. Bowing seemed safe. Queen Valina looked at him. Her eyes were like blue fire. "You are the human engineer," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. It filled the entire hall without effort. "You are the one who repaired my armor." Jiho nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." His voice sounded small. He hated how small it sounded. "My own engineers said it was impossible. They said the damage was too great. They said the sacred raiment was lost forever." She leaned forward slightly. "But you did not believe them." Jiho paused. He did not know how to explain. "I just saw a machine that was broken. I wanted to fix it. I did not think about impossible. I only thought about how to make it work again." A murmur ran through the crowd. Jiho could not tell if it was approval or anger. The old advisor, Morath, stepped forward. He held a scroll in his hands. His voice was loud and formal. "According to the ancient laws of the first queen, written in the time before memory, the sacred raiment may only be touched by two beings, the queen herself and her chosen consort." The crowd stirred. Jiho felt cold. Morath continued. "Long ago, when our ancestors were young, a great queen created a trial. Any who wished to marry the queen must prove their worth. They must show strength of mind. They must show skill of hand. They must show purity of heart. Only then could they touch the sacred raiment. Only then could they repair it if damaged. Only then could they claim the queen's hand." He looked directly at Jiho. "You, human, have touched the sacred raiment. You have repaired it. By our ancient law, you have completed the trial of the groom. You have declared yourself worthy of the queen." Jiho's mouth opened. No words came out. "The law is clear," Morath said. "The law is absolute. The human is now a candidate for the queen's hand. He has the right to claim her. He has the right to be called." He paused. Then he shouted the word that would change Jiho's life forever. "Groom!" The hall erupted. Thousands of Corvani began to chant. They stomped their feet. They beat their fists against their chests. The sound was like thunder. The word echoed off the walls and ceiling. "Groom! Groom! Groom!" Jiho stood frozen. This was not happening. This could not be happening. He was just an engineer. He was just a small human from Earth who liked to fix things. He was not a groom. He was not worthy of a queen. He was nobody. But the chanting continued. "Groom! Groom! Groom!" He looked up at Queen Valina. She sat perfectly still on her throne. Her face showed nothing. But her eyes were watching him with something that might have been curiosity, or maybe amusement. He could not tell. Then a voice cut through the chanting. "Stop!" The crowd fell silent. Prince Torek stepped forward. His purple shell gleamed with anger. His eyes burned with hatred. He pointed at Jiho with a clawed finger. "This is madness," Torek shouted. "This human is not worthy of our queen. He is not a warrior. He is not a noble. He is not even Corvani. He is a small, weak creature from a young, foolish species. How can he claim the right of the groom?" Murmurs of agreement came from parts of the crowd. Jiho saw that Torek had supporters. Many supporters. Morath raised his hand for silence. "The law does not speak of species. The law does not speak of strength. The law speaks only of the trial. The sacred raiment was damaged. The human repaired it. The trial is complete." "Then I challenge him," Torek shouted. "By the law of our ancestors, I challenge this human to a duel. Let him prove his worth in combat. Let him prove he deserves what he claims." The crowd buzzed with excitement. A duel. Blood. Drama. This was what they wanted. Jiho felt sick. He was not a fighter. He had never held a weapon in his life. If he fought Torek, he would die. It was that simple. But then Morath spoke again. "A challenge has been made. By law, the human must answer. He has three options. He may accept the challenge and fight. He may refuse the challenge and give up his claim. Or," the old advisor smiled slightly, "he may invoke the ancient right of the three trials." "Three trials?" Jiho managed to say. "Mind, craft, and heart. If both parties agree, the duel becomes a contest of worthiness. Not strength alone, but the qualities that make a true consort. A true king." Torek laughed. "I accept. Let the human face me in all three trials. Let him fail. Let him prove to everyone that he is nothing but a lucky fool. All eyes turned to Jiho. He stood alone in the center of the great hall. Thousands watched him. A queen waited for his answer. His whole life had led to this moment, and he had no idea how he had gotten here. He thought about Yuna. She would tell him to refuse, give up the claim, go home safely. He thought about the armor, his work, his 3 nights of effort, his best creation. He thought about Queen Valina. The way she had looked when her armor was destroyed, the way her hands had shaken. He took a deep breath. I accept the 3 trials, he said. The crowd roared. Torex smiled his cold smile, and somewhere in the back of the hall, Yuna put her head in her hands. Queen Valina raised her hand. The crowd fell silent instantly. The challenge is accepted, she said. The 3 trials will begin tomorrow. May the worthy one prove himself. May the gods watch and judge. She looked at Jiho one more time. Her eyes were still unreadable. But just for a moment, just for half a second, he thought he saw something in them. Hope. Then she stood and walked away, and the crowd began to leave. And Jiho was left standing alone in the empty hall. He had just agreed to compete for a queen's hand. He was probably going to die. But somewhere, deep inside, a small voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, he could win. The news spread like fire. Within hours, every ship in the Corvani Empire knew what had happened. A human engineer had repaired the queen's sacred armor. A human had claimed the right of the groom. A human was going to compete for Queen Valina's hand. Within days, the news reached Earth. Jiho sat in his small room, staring at a communication screen. On the screen was a face he did not recognize. A man in a suit, a government official. Let me be very clear, Engineer Park, the man said. His voice was cold and careful. This situation is extremely delicate. The Corvani Empire controls 3 star systems. They have resources we need. They have technology we want. We cannot afford to offend them. I did not mean to, Jiho started. It does not matter what you meant. It matters what you did. The man leaned closer to the screen. Some people in our government think we should hand you over. Let the Corvani punish you. Avoid any blame ourselves. Jiho felt his stomach drop. Hand me over? Others think this is an opportunity. A human married to the Corvani queen would give us access to their empire. Trade, technology, power. The man smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. You have become very important, Engineer Park, whether you wanted to be or not. I just wanted to fix the armor. I did not think about politics. Then you should start thinking about it now. The man's smile faded. Win or lose, you represent humanity. Do not embarrass us. The screen went dark. Jiho sat in silence for a long time. Yuna found him an hour later. She brought food. She brought water. She brought a plan. The 3 trial, she said, spreading documents across his small table. I have been researching all night. Mind, craft, and heart. These are the traditional tests for any who seek to marry into the royal family. What do they involve? The trial of mind is a puzzle, something that tests intelligence and wisdom. In the past, candidates have faced riddles, logic problems, strategy games. Yuna looked at him seriously. You are smart, Jiho. You can do this. Jiho nodded slowly. And the trial of craft? Building something, creating something. The candidates must prove their ability to make things of value. Yuna almost smiled. This is your strength. You are the best engineer I know. You can win this trial easily. And the trial of heart? Yuna's face grew serious. This is the most difficult. The candidate must speak their intentions, their reasons, their soul. The queen judges not what they say, but who they are. It is a trial of character. Jiho looked at his hands. They were rough from years of work. Good hands, useful hands. But were they the hands of a king? Were they the hands of someone worthy of a queen? He did not know. A knock came at the door. Yuna opened it. A Corvani guard stood outside. The queen wishes to speak with the human, the guard said, alone. Jiho and Yuna exchanged glances. Then Jiho stood and followed the guard. The walk was long. They went deep into the royal quarters, through halls that no human had ever seen, past guards and servants and nobles who watched him with curious eyes. Finally, they reached a small room. It was simple, beautiful. A window showed the stars outside. The queen stood by the window looking at the darkness. The guard left. The door closed. Jiho was alone with Queen Valina. She did not turn around. "You did not know our customs," she said. Her voice was softer than before, less formal, more real. "You did not know what repairing my armor would mean." "No, Your Majesty, I did not." "Then why did you do it?" Jiho thought about the question. He could give a simple answer. He could say he was just doing his job. He could say he did not think about it. But the queen deserved the truth. "Because it was broken," he said, "and because nobody else would try." Valina turned around. Her eyes studied him. She was not wearing the armor now. She looked younger without it, more tired, more human. "My engineers said it was impossible. They gave up after only looking at the damage. But you spent 3 nights working on it. 3 nights without sleep. 3 nights of effort for something that was not even yours." She walked closer to him. "Why?" Jiho struggled to explain. "When I see something broken, I see how it can be fixed. I see the solution, even when others see only the problem. I cannot ignore it. I have to try. I have to make it work again." He paused. "It is who I am." Valina was quiet for a long moment. "My people value strength, power, conquest. These are the traditional virtues of a Korvani leader. But I have always wondered if there are other virtues, other strengths." "What do you mean?" "Prince Torek wants to marry me because he wants power. He wants to control my empire. He wants to use my throne for his own ambition. If I marry him, we will have war, endless war. He will spend my people's lives like coins." Her voice was bitter. "I have refused him for years, but my position grows weaker. Without the armor, my enemies grew bold. I was running out of time. And now? Now you have given me another option." She looked at him with something like wonder. "A human who fixes things instead of breaking them. A human who creates instead of destroys. A human who sees problems and makes solutions." She smiled slightly. "You are very strange, Engineer Park." "I know," Jiho said. "I have always been strange. Torek will try to destroy you. He will cheat in the trials if he can. He will kill you if he gets the chance. His faction has already tried to assassinate me once. They will not hesitate to kill you." Jiho felt fear, cold, real fear. But he did not look away from the queen's eyes. "I know. Why do you not run? You could refuse the trials. You could go home. You could live." It was a good question. Jiho thought about it carefully. "Because if I run, it will shame my people. It will make humanity look weak and afraid. My government will suffer. My friends will suffer." He took a breath. "And because someone once told me that the sacred raiment is everything to your people. If I run, Torek wins. He marries you. He destroys everything you have tried to build. I cannot let that happen. You do not even know me. Why do you care what happens to my empire?" Jiho looked at her. She was tall and strange and alien. But he saw something familiar in her eyes, something he recognized. "Because you are trying to fix something broken," he said. "Just like me. You are trying to repair your empire, make it better, stronger. You want to build, not destroy. I understand that. I respect that." Valina stared at him for a long time. The stars glittered outside the window. The silence stretched between them. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. It was a small laugh, gentle and real. "You are very strange, Engineer Park, but perhaps strange is what I need." She walked to the door. Before she opened it, she looked back at him. "Win the trials, human. Prove that strength is not the only virtue. Prove that creation is as powerful as destruction." Her eyes glowed in the dim light. "And perhaps you will find that you have fixed more than just my armor." She left. The door closed. Jiho stood alone in the room, looking at the stars. Tomorrow the trials would begin. Tomorrow, he would face a prince who wanted him dead. Tomorrow his whole life would change. He thought about his hands, his rough, useful engineer's hands. Could they really build a bridge between two worlds? Could they really fix an empire? He did not know, but he was going to try, because that was who he was. That was what he did. He fixed broken things. The arena was massive. It sat in the heart of the royal station, a circular chamber with walls that rose so high they disappeared into darkness. Thousands of Corvani filled the seats. They talked and shouted and placed bets on the outcome. It was the greatest entertainment their empire had seen in generations. A human competing for the queen's hand. Nobody had ever imagined such a thing. Jiho stood at one end of the arena floor. He was wearing simple clothes. His toolkit hung at his belt. His heart was beating fast, but he kept his face calm. Yuna had told him to show no fear. The Corvani respected courage. At the other end stood Prince Torek. He was wearing battle armor, dark purple and gleaming with weapons. He looked like a warrior. He looked like a king. He looked at Jiho the way a predator looks at prey. Queen Valina sat on a high throne overlooking the arena. The sacred raiment glowed golden on her body. She raised her hand, and the crowd fell silent. Today we witness the three trials, she announced. The trial of mind, the trial of craft, the trial of heart. Two candidates seek the right to stand beside me. Only one can prove worthy. Let the trials begin. The crowd roared. Advisor Marath walked to the center of the arena. He carried a small box in his ancient hands. The trial of mind, he said. Both candidates will be given the same puzzle. The one who solves it first will win. The puzzle is ancient. It has been used for generations. Many have tried, few have succeeded. He opened the box and revealed two small objects. They looked like metal cubes, covered in strange symbols and moving parts. He gave one to Jiho and one to Torek. You must open the cube, Morath said. The first to do so wins. Jiho examined the cube. It was warm in his hands. The symbols on its surface glowed faintly. He saw gears and switches and panels that could move. It was a puzzle box, a test of logic and pattern recognition. He looked at Torek. The prince was already working on his cube, moving pieces with fast, confident hands. He knew the patterns. He had studied for this moment. Jiho took a deep breath. He tried the obvious solutions first. He pressed buttons. He turned gears. He slid panels. Nothing worked. The cube stayed closed. The crowd watched in silence. Torek was making progress. Jiho could see parts of his cube opening, revealing more layers inside. The prince was fast. He was skilled. He knew the Corvani patterns. But Jiho did not think like a Corvani. He thought like an engineer. He thought like a problem solver. He thought sideways. He stopped trying to open the cube the normal way. Instead, he looked at the whole thing. He studied the energy flow. He felt the vibrations in the metal. He listened to the tiny sounds it made. And he noticed something strange. The cube was not meant to be opened from the outside. It was meant to be opened from the inside. The energy inside the cube was waiting for something. A signal. A code. Jiho looked at the symbols on the surface. They were not just decorations. They were a language, a pattern, a message. He traced his finger along the symbols in a specific order, not pressing them, not turning them, just touching them, connecting them like a circuit. The cube hummed in his hands. Light poured from the cracks, and then, with a soft click, it opened. The crowd gasped. Jiho held up the open cube. Inside was a small crystal, glowing with inner light, a symbol of success. Torek stared at his own cube, still mostly closed. His eyes widened with shock. Then they narrowed with hatred. The trial of mind goes to the human, Marath announced. Park Jiho has solved the ancient puzzle. The crowd cheered. Some of them anyway. Others looked angry. They had not expected the human to win even one trial. Valina's face showed nothing, but Jiho saw her hands relax slightly on the arms of her throne. She had been worried. She had not been sure he could do it. Neither had he. The second trial began immediately. Workers carried 2 tables onto the arena floor. On each table was a pile of materials. Metal scraps, wires, power cells, tools, random parts from random machines. The trial of craft, Morath said. Each candidate must build something useful, something of value, something that demonstrates their skill and their vision. They have 1 hour. When the time is finished, the queen will judge their work. Torek smiled. This was his moment. He was a prince. He had trained in the royal forges. He knew how to make weapons. He knew how to create beauty. Jiho looked at his pile of materials. He saw possibilities. He always saw possibilities. But what should he build? What would impress a queen? He thought about Valina's words. She was tired of war. She was tired of destruction. She wanted something different for her people. Torek was already working. His hands moved quickly, shaping metal into a blade. It was beautiful. It was deadly. It was exactly what everyone expected from a Corvani prince. Jiho picked up a piece of pipe. He picked up a filter. He picked up a power cell. And he began to build something completely different. The hour passed quickly. Jiho worked without stopping. His hands knew what to do. His mind saw the finished product. He bent metal. He connected wires. He created something that had never existed before. When the horn sounded, both candidates stepped back from their tables. Torek held up his creation. It was a sword. A beautiful, deadly sword. The blade glowed with energy. The handle was carved with royal symbols. It was a weapon fit for a king. The crowd applauded. This was what they understood. This was strength. This was power. This was Corvani. Then all eyes turned to Jiho. He held up his creation. It was a small device. It looked simple. A cylinder with a filter on one end and a spout on the other. "What is that?" Torek laughed. "A toy? A trinket? This is your best work, human." Jiho did not answer. Instead, he walked to a bowl of dirty water that had been placed on his table. The water was brown and foul. He placed his device in the water. He pressed a button. The device hummed. Water flowed through it, and out of the spout came something clear, pure, clean. "It is a water purifier," Jiho said. "I designed it to work with Corvani power cells. It is simple. It is cheap. Anyone can build one. Anyone can use one." He looked at the queen. "I read about your drought colonies, the worlds where clean water is rare. This device could save thousands of lives." The crowd fell silent. Torek's sword was beautiful. It could kill one enemy at a time. Jiho's device was simple. It could save entire villages. Queen Valina stood. She walked down from her throne, past her guards onto the arena floor. She stopped in front of Jiho. "May I?" she asked, reaching for the device. Jiho handed it to her. She examined it carefully. She saw how it worked. She understood its value. Then she looked at Jiho with eyes that held something new. Something that might have been admiration. "The trial of craft goes to the human," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the arena. "He has created something that serves life, not death. He has reminded us what true strength can be." The crowd erupted into chaos. Some cheered. Some shouted in anger. Torek stood frozen, his beautiful sword suddenly looking small and useless. 2 trials won. 1 trial left. The trial of heart. Marath raised his hands for silence. "The final trial will begin. Each candidate must speak their intentions. They must explain why they seek the queen's hand. The queen will judge not their words, but their truth." Torek stepped forward first. He was still angry, but he controlled it well. He straightened his shoulders. He spoke in a strong, clear voice. "I seek the queen's hand because I love her empire," he said. "I love our people. I love our strength. I will lead us to glory. I will expand our borders. I will make the Corvani name feared across the galaxy. With me as king, our enemies will tremble. Our allies will bow. We will be the greatest power in the universe." The crowd cheered. This was the speech they expected. This was power. This was ambition. This was Corvani. Then it was Jiho's turn. He walked to the center of the arena. He looked up at the thousands of faces watching him. He looked at Torek's cold smile. He looked at Valina's waiting eyes. He thought about his life, his simple life, his love of machines, his desire to fix broken things. "I do not seek the queen's hand," he said quietly. The crowd murmured in confusion. Jiho continued, "I did not come here looking for power. I did not plan to marry anyone. I just saw a broken machine, and I fixed it. That is what I do. That is all I know how to do. He took a breath. But I have learned something since I came here. I have learned that people can be broken too. Empires can be broken. Dreams can be broken. And maybe they can be fixed the same way machines can. With patience, with care, with hands that want to create instead of destroy. He looked directly at Velina. I do not want to be a king. I do not want power or glory. I want to build things that help people. I want to fix what is broken. If the queen sees value in that, then I will do my best to be worthy of her trust. If not, I will go home and continue being what I have always been. An engineer. Nothing more. The arena was silent. Jiho stood alone in the center, surrounded by thousands of aliens, waiting for judgment. Velina looked at him for a long, long moment. Then she smiled. The trial of heart goes to the human, she said. He speaks truth, and truth is the foundation of all good things. The crowd exploded. Jiho had won. The crowd was still roaring when Torek moved. Jiho saw it happen in slow motion. The prince's face twisted with rage. His hand reached for a hidden blade at his belt. His eyes locked on Jiho with murderous hate. If I cannot have the throne, Torek shouted, then this human will never sit upon it. He threw the blade. It flew through the air like a silver line of death. It was perfectly aimed. It would have struck Jiho directly in the heart. But Velina was faster. The queen moved like lightning. The sacred raiment glowed with power. She caught the blade in her armored hand, crushing it into dust. She stood between Jiho and Torek, her eyes burning with cold fire. You dare, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of 40 generations of queens. You dare attack my chosen consort in my own hall. Torek froze. He realized his mistake too late. By attacking Jiho in front of thousands of witnesses, he had proven his treachery. He had given the queen the evidence she needed. Guards, Velina said calmly, arrest Prince Torek for attempted murder and for the assassination attempt against my person 3 days ago. We have always suspected his involvement. Now we have proof of his true nature. The royal guards surrounded Torek. He struggled, but there were too many. They dragged him away as he screamed curses at Jiho, at Velina, at everyone. The crowd watched in stunned silence. They had expected a wedding. They had not expected a prince to be arrested. Velina turned to Jiho. She looked tired but also relieved. A heavy weight had been lifted from her shoulders. That was dangerous, Jiho said quietly. You could have been hurt. Velina looked at him strangely. You almost died, and you are worried about me? You moved very fast. The blade was sharp. Even with the armor you repaired is stronger than any blade. She smiled slightly. You improved it, remember? I felt no danger at all. Jiho felt something warm in his chest. Pride, and something else. Something he was afraid to name. The next few days were chaos. Torek's arrest revealed the depth of his conspiracy. He had planned the assassination attempt on Velina. He had spies in the royal court. He had been preparing to seize power for years. Without his failed attack on Jiho, none of this would have been discovered. One by one, his allies were found and arrested. The faction that had threatened Velina's rule was destroyed. Her position on the throne had never been more secure. Earth's government sent messages of congratulations. They were very interested in strengthening ties with the Corvani Empire. Trade agreements were discussed. Technology exchanges were proposed. Jiho's accidental proposal had opened doors that decades of diplomacy could not. Through all of this, Jiho stayed quiet. He worked in the engine room during the day. He slept in his small room at night. He avoided the attention as much as he could, but he could not avoid everything. One evening, Velina came to his room. She wore simple clothes, not the sacred raiment. She looked almost ordinary, almost human. May I come in? She asked. Jiho stepped aside. Of course. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. I never thanked you properly. For the armor, for the trials, for everything. You do not need to thank me. I just did what I do. Yes, you fix things. She turned to face him. But you have fixed more than just machines, Park Jiho. You have fixed my empire. You have saved my throne. You have given my people a new hope. Jiho did not know what to say. He was not used to being praised. He was not used to being important. There is something we need to discuss, Velina continued. Her voice was careful now, uncertain. The trial results, the betrothal. Ah, Jiho felt his heart beat faster. Yes, I have been thinking about that. So have I. She took a breath. I do not know you well, Park Jiho. You do not know me. We are from different worlds, different species, different lives. That is true. A marriage between us would be complicated. There would be challenges, cultural differences, political pressures, many obstacles. Yes, Jiho nodded slowly. Many obstacles. Velina was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. It was a real smile, warm and genuine. I like obstacles, she said. They give me something to overcome. Jiho blinked. What are you saying? I am saying that I do not want to cancel the betrothal. She walked closer to him. I am saying that I want to try. Not a wedding tomorrow, not a wedding next month, but perhaps we could learn each other. Perhaps we could see if what we have is real. You want to date me? Velina laughed. The sound was beautiful. I do not know this word, but if it means spending time together, learning about each other, building something new, then yes, I want that. Jiho stared at her. The queen of 3 star systems, the most powerful woman in this part of the galaxy, and she wanted to date him. I am just an engineer, he said, and I am just a queen. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was different from human skin, harder, cooler, but somehow it felt right. Perhaps together we can build something neither of us could build alone. Jiho looked at their joined hands. He thought about everything that had happened. The accident, the armor, the trials, the chaos, and then he laughed. I came here to fix engines, he said. Now I am engaged to a queen. Life is strange, Velina agreed. Very strange. They stood by the window together looking at the stars. 2 people from 2 different worlds. 2 builders who wanted to create something new. The next week, Jiho returned to the horizon. He could not stay on the Corvani station forever. He had duties, he had a job, he had a life. But things were different now. He was no longer just an engineer. He was an ambassador, a symbol, a bridge between 2 civilizations. The crew treated him differently. Some were jealous, some were amazed, most were simply confused. So let me understand this correctly, said Chief Engineer Kim, an older woman who had worked on the horizon for 20 years. You fixed an alien queen's armor. By accident, you proposed to her. You won a 3-part competition against an alien prince, and now you are engaged to the ruler of 3 star systems? That is correct, Jiho said. And you did not plan any of this? No. Chief Kim stared at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head and walked away, muttering about young people and their luck. Yuna found him in the engine room that evening. He was working on a broken stabilizer. Some things never change. How do you feel? She asked. Jiho put down his tools. He thought about the question. Scared, he admitted, and excited, and confused, and happy. He laughed at himself. I do not know what I feel. That sounds about right. Yuna leaned against a wall. You know this will not be easy. A human and a Corvani. 2 different cultures. 2 different worlds. There will be problems. I know. But, Jiho smiled. It was a small smile, tired but real. But I have never backed away from a problem in my life. I have never seen something broken and refused to try fixing it. He picked up his tools again. This is just another project. A big project. Maybe the biggest project of my life. But I can handle it. And if you cannot, then I will ask for help. I will learn. I will adapt. I will keep trying until I get it right. He looked at her with steady eyes. That is what engineers do, Yuna. We do not give up. Yuna watched him for a long moment. Then she smiled too. You know what, Jiho? I think maybe you are the right person for this, after all. She left him to his work. Jiho tightened a bolt. He adjusted a connection. He made a broken thing work again. Somewhere out in space, on a station orbiting a distant world, a queen was waiting. She was wearing armor that he had fixed with his own hands. She was ruling an empire that he had helped save. She was thinking about a human who had stumbled into her life and changed everything. And in a small engine room on a human carrier, a simple engineer was thinking about her. Two builders, two creators, two people who wanted to fix broken things. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. The stars glittered outside the window. The future was uncertain. The challenges were enormous. But Park Ji-ho was not worried. He had his tools. He had his skills. He had his heart. And he had finally found something truly worth building. Not just a machine, not just an armor, a bridge between worlds, a new beginning, a future that nobody had imagined. All because he had seen something broken and refused to walk away.